to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Sunday evening, March the 2nd. I am your host, Mike Oliva, flying solo today as we have a lot to talk about in the world of the Miami Dolphins now that the NFL Scouting Combine is in the books. We're going to talk about, which players are rising, falling. More so than that, not necessarily that even per se. We're going to talk about what the Miami Dolphins should do this offseason, how they should address this offseason. They got needs, many needs. Which one should they address in free agency? Which ones should they address in the draft? And what we learned from the scouting combine was some of these positions and how that might affect what the Dolphins do in the first couple rounds, at least picks 13, picks 48, because after that, it's really just like throwing a dart. So we're going to talk about all that on today's show. Before we get to that, as always, a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Everyone go to caneswear.com. That's right, caneswear.com for the best Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. You need a t-shirt, you need a golf shirt, you need a hoodie, you need something for the house, you need something for your car. You need anything Miami Dolphins with the Miami Dolphins logo on it. You need a jacket, you need a windbreaker, you need a pullover. Go to caneswear.com. They have the best Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. They also have, of course, the Miami Heat, Florida Panthers, Miami Marlins, Miami Hurricanes, and all of the college teams in South Florida. That's caneswear.com. And if you don't live in the United States, don't worry. They do ship internationally as well. Also, a shout out for those of you who are members of Dolphins Talk Extra. And if you're not a member, here's why you got to sign up. We have a lot going on at Dolphins Talk Extra. It's patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. It's only $3 a month. And what you get for that $3 a month are bonus shows on the Miami Dolphins. Josh and Aaron, they did one late last week on Thursday or Friday. Check that out. We have a new one dropping this Monday with myself, Josh, and Aaron. That's going to be exclusive to Dolphins Talk Extra. I dropped a pro wrestling show earlier on Sunday with the fallout from, John Cena. That no good son of a bitch turned heel and became a bad guy. So I do a pro wrestling show pretty much every week. We have contests. I'm going to announce a contest probably by the time most of you are listening to this for your chance to win a Tyreek Hill mini bobblehead doll. We have a private message board. We give you so much content, extra content. That's why it's extra content, bonus content, contest with prizes, message boards. We have a March Madness contest coming up. Patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. $3 a month. Check it out. All right. So the combine, like I said, it's in the books. And, a lot of the top guys, they show up, they meet with the teams, they do the medicals, but they don't necessarily participate. Some of them do, not all of them. But, the news that you get out of the combine is more scuttlebutt, rumor, and innuendo from what's the hot gossip in Indy. And you start to see which guys who do work out at least maybe help their stock a little bit, which guys hurt their stock because they didn't run as fast as some people thought, or they're not as tall as some people thought, or they got small hands and all that stuff. So there's that. And look, one thing I want to say, if you go on social media or you read any of the articles that are coming out of Indy, it's like this player met with this team and he said it went well. So you cannot put any thought in that. Here's why. Excuse me. Every team meets with almost every player, and these players are coached up to say, oh, that meeting went great. I'd love to join that team. I mean, which player is going to badmouth the team? It just makes no sense. So do not read anything into that stuff. The players are coached up to say it, and every player is doing research. I mean, every team is doing research on every player. So it is what it is. And what we really see here coming out of the combine is, draft coverage is like a year-round thing now. it's a little bit overkill, honestly. But once we get to the mid-February, late February, into the combine, you can start to see, which guys are projected to go round one, which guys will probably go round two. Then when you get past the combine, say, okay, these guys, there's like a handful of guys are projected pretty much locked into the top half of round one or middle of round one and stuff. And that's kind of where we are now. And from a Miami Dolphins perspective, we can start to play out how the Dolphins can address this offseason a little bit with more information we have now than we did like a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, knowing at pick 13 around one, these are the guys that are realistic for the Dolphins. You got a couple offensive linemen, you got a linebacker, you're probably going to have a safety. You might have a tight end in there, a big time tight end. And, you look at the needs for the Dolphins, like, okay, they're going to be able to get someone to fill a hole here. So what does that mean for free agency as we look at the other needs on this team? Because not every need has someone there for Miami to take at pick 13, assuming they stay at 13, which we're going to do for this conversation. So I think first and foremost, we know the Dolphins have 10 picks in this draft. They have a lot of needs. I've broken them down into primary needs and secondary needs. The primary needs of this team are, in no special order, offensive line, defensive line, and secondary help, either corner or safety. Those are the primary needs. Your secondary needs are, I would say, linebacker and tight end. Yes, Miami needs wide receiver depth. They need running back depth. They need a number 2 quarterback, but those are not pressing needs. And I know on the show I did with Tom last Sunday, he was talking about the possibility of Miami taking a wide receiver in round one. It's just not going to happen. It just won't happen. It's even asinine to sort of talk about. They have invested $30 million per year into 2 wide receivers. They have two $30 million per year wide receivers. To think they're going to now use a first-round pick on a wide receiver is just asinine. I mean, we can, if certain guys there that they fall in love with, I mean, anything's possible, especially with Chris Grier, but it's just not going to happen. We know the pressing needs of this team in the trenches on both sides, secondary linebacker, and I'd even throw tight end in there, but that's probably not as high on the list. So what should the breakdown be between what to address in free agency, what to spend your money on there, and what to address in the draft? And to me, here's how I would do it if I was in charge. Buy offense, i.e. free agency, draft defense. That's the strategy I would do. I mean, it's not cut and dry. You're going to spend all your money in free agency just on offensive players and then use all 10 picks on defense. But you know what I mean? The bulk of the free agent money should be on offensive players, and the bulk of those 10 picks in the draft should be on defense. That's how I think Miami should build this team this offseason, how I think it's how the draft kind of falls with which positions of strength sort of fit their needs the best, and where I think they need guys where they can't wait around for growing pains and to wait those out. They need instant proven starters at a couple spots, and that's why I would spend money there. And, the other thing you have to factor in, and I know today is March 2nd, which is his birthday. Happy birthday, Tua. With Tua's injury history, I'm not risking a rookie in a key spot around him. I think putting a rookie offensive lineman in front of him brings a level of risk. Now, you hope in round one, you take someone, even at 13, as an offensive lineman. It's a plug-and-play kid who's going to be very good where you don't have those nerves. But we've lived through Austin Jackson, who it took him 3 years or so to become a quality offensive lineman you can trust, and I still got scars from that. So I would be very careful taking an offensive lineman around one who's a plug-and-play guy that they're going to have to start and put in front of Tua, knowing Tua's injury history here. So there's that aspect of it. And I also know there's a segment of the fan base who thinks every draft pick that the Miami Dolphins make, especially in the early rounds, should just be an offensive lineman. Just draft offensive lineman. That's just unrealistic. Number one, you got Patrick Paul, you got Austin Jackson, you got Aaron Brewer. You're not going to use picks 1 and 2 both on offensive linemen, because then it's just an overkill, and you're just ignoring needs on the rest of the team, which will, even if the offensive line plays great, you're still going to lose games because you don't have anyone in the secondary. You don't have anyone to stop the run. So you can't just do that. And so I understand offensive line needs to be addressed, but again, how I would handle it this offseason, address that, in free agency. You get proven guys that you pay money to. So in the draft, you're not hamstrung. You don't have your hands tied to like, we must draft an offensive lineman. No, let's address it in free agency. So you go into the draft, go, you know what? If the right guy's there, we'll take him. But if not, we're not worried. We address the offensive line in free agency. So that's how I would do it. Plus, I've had this line of logic, and I stand by it. And this year, I think for Miami, I stand by it even more. Getting impact players on defense right away is easier because kids can use their speed and their athleticism, i.e. like Chop Robinson did, to get on the field quicker and to make an impact quicker. Chop Robinson, when we threw him out there, weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he struggled a bit, but he was still making plays. He was in on plays. You could feel his impact, even though he wasn't, sacking the quarterback, but he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, just out there making something happen. And when he got more well-seasoned as the season went on, then he started to get the sacks. He started to make the big impact plays. And I think on that side of the ball, you can do that. On offense, man, these rules these days are skewed to the offensive players. And, I think on the opposite side of the ball, you can throw someone out there and they can just run and chase after the ball. So give me athletes with speed on defense because I think you can get them on the field faster. On offense, it's more like synchronized swimming. You kind of need that experience, and you can't. And you can take someone and put them out there, but there's growing pains involved. There's a lot of growing pains on that side of the ball, I think, and it takes more time. And everyone just assumes that Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel are fighting for the jobs. They don't have time to go through growing pains of a guard or an offensive tackle or a tight end who misses a blocking assignment. Like, they don't have time for that. So that's why my theory this offseason is spend money on proven players on offense, draft defense, because I think you can acclimate them quicker and better. Now, free agency. We know they got Hill and Waddle, and it's very slim odds that they're going to trade Hill. It could happen, but it's just slim. They need wide receiver depth. Malik Washington's a nice player. He's not a number 3. He's a nice player. Not hating, just stating. He's a number 4 wide receiver. They need a proven number 3. I think you can get a proven number 3 wide receiver in free agency relatively cheap. Keyword relatively, okay? I think you can get a cheap veteran running back to be your running back 3 in free agency. I think you can sign a veteran proven backup quarterback in free agency. Now, guard, I think they have to spend money on at least one proven guard. Now, I would do it on 2, but at least one proven guard in free agency. That's what I would do. And that's where I would like to see Miami spend the bulk of their free agency money. Yes, they also need to pay a safety and a corner in free agency, because even though you want to address some of that stuff in the draft, they have one safety under contract. They have one cornerback that you trust under contract in Ramsey. They're going to need to sign some vets there. But the bulk of the money should be on offense. Now, when it comes to the draft, you got 10 picks. And what I'm doing in this draft is I'm looking to draft Christian Wilkins' replacement, which we did not do last year. We didn't even, they signed Calais Campbell, who's just an old man on a 1-year deal. We need to probably add, like I said, a corner and a safety in the draft, a long-term number 2 corner, hopefully, because Cam Smith ain't it, folks. Cam Smith is a BUST bust. Linebackers, we have nothing next to Jordan Brooks. So let me play out here a sample free agency for the Dolphins. How I would spend some money on offense. Quarterback, Marcus Mariota. Now, I'm not the biggest Marcus Mariota guy. I'm not saying what I would do. I would still go after like a Zach Wilson, Mac Jones type, but I have a feeling they're going to bring in Tua's friend. They're going to bring in someone that's not going to be threatening to Tua, and I think someone like Marcus Mariota is probably that guy. At guard, I would sign 2, and here are 2 names. One of them, there's a Bleacher Report, which again, that's Bleacher Report. Don't put too much stock into it. Saying that the perfect fit for Miami is Brandon Sheriff. He's 33. He has a long injury history, although last year he stayed relatively healthy. But you got to factor in the injury history, and you have to factor in the age. He's 33. The other guy I would keep an eye on is Aaron Banks out of San Francisco. Sign 1 or 2 of them. I think those are, if they sign them both, those are your guards. If they sign one, well, then you at least got one guard settled heading into the draft probably. So those are 2 names I'd keep an eye on there. Running back, an interesting name. Now, he doesn't fit what Mike McDaniel wants of speed only, but hopefully there's going to be an adult in the room who tells Mike every running back cannot be the same. Every running back just can't be super fast. You need someone who can move some bodies, who can break a tackle. And I would go and I would look at Trey Sermon from Arizona, who's a free agent. Someone like that complement what we have in Achane and Wright. That's a name I keep an eye on. Wide receiver. This is a name who was out there last year and really didn't have a big market, and he didn't have a great year just because of the quarterback situation. Tyler Boyd, I think, is a perfect number 3 wide receiver for Miami. And I don't think he's going to cost a ton of money. I really don't. So, Hill, Waddle, Tyler Boyd, Malik Washington, that's a wide receiver room I like. Okay. That's a wide receiver room I like a lot, actually. So someone like him, tight end, I don't know how expensive he would be, but Austin Hooper is a name I would look at from the Patriots. So if Miami did that in free agency, say they signed Marcus Mariota, Brandon Sheriff, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Tyler Boyd, Austin Hooper, there's not a lot of big names there, but they're guys who fill roles that Miami needs. You have a proven number 2 quarterback. You can get one. If they sign each of the offensive linemen, you got 2 starting guards. There's your offensive line. Now you're just worried about who's going to be your second string offensive lineman. Trey Sermon in their group with Wright and with Achane. That's a nice little running back room right there. Tyler Boyd, what we got in Hill and Waddle, complements them. Austin Hooper as a number 2 to Jonnu Smith. Hey, that tight end room ain't looking so bad. Julian Hill ain't going nowhere. Although I know fans don't really like him, but okay, that's 3 tight ends right there. That you've addressed your offense here, and really, you haven't signed any big name superstars by any means. I mean, Sheriff and Aaron Banks and Marcus Mariota will probably get paid the most out of that group. And how much are we talking about with those 3 guys? It's like Sheriff and Banks for crying out loud. So I think those are some realistic type of offseason moves Miami could make to address your offense. And then what you got with Hill, Waddle, Achane, Tua, Jonnu Smith, Austin Jackson, Aaron Brewer. Hopefully Patrick Paul turns out to be something you can rely on. That's a pretty good offense. That's a pretty good offense right there. One healthy, at least. And yeah, they still need to probably get a backup swing tackle, and they probably need to get some backup guards. Maybe you re-sign someone like Isaiah Wynn there. You find a swing tackle for depth. That's not too bad of an offense right there. And again, you really haven't broken the bank with any big-name superstars there. Now, before I get to the draft, I want to take a moment to have a shout-out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout-out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are a part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean, Podchaser, iHeartRadio, Audible, or on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to have shows not quite every day, but we're going to have a lot of shows coming up here real quick. You're not going to want to miss. So be sure you are subscribed to the DolphinsTalk.com YouTube. Be sure you are subscribed to wherever you're listening to this podcast in the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, smash that like button. Smash it. Take a second, smash it, and subscribe to the channel. Okay, if we do that on offense, now we're looking at the defense. And now we're looking at the draft. And like I said, you got your primary needs, which are offensive line, defensive line, secondary. And you got your secondary needs, which are linebacker and tight end. Now, tight end, if Warren's there at 13, it's going to be tough not to take him because I think he's a weapon. I think he also allows you to move on from Jonnu Smith after this year when his contract's up and he starts to get a little bit older. And he's someone who, after this year, Tyreek Hill's not going to be here, folks. Spoiler alert. This is his final year in Miami because he's a pain in the ass. So you add a weapon with Waddle on offense. You're thinking long-term. And then short-term for this year, you have Hill, Waddle, Jonnu, Warren. You got some weapons in the passing game which you can make defensive coordinators' nights very much sleepless. So if he's there, it'd be tough not to take him, but I don't think they're going to take him. Just like I don't think they're going to take a wide receiver in round 1. I just think they have too many. I think they know they have to address the trenches. So at pick 13, in my little fantasy world here, where I just addressed a lot of the offensive holes and free agency and spent money there, I'm looking at front 7, specifically defensive line. And Shamir Stewart, the Texas A&M defensive end, whose stock just absolutely skyrocketed at the combine. He might be gone before 13, but if he's not, he's someone I want to put on the opposite side of Zach Sealer and watch them wreak havoc on your defensive line. So that's one of the names. The other name, he's a linebacker, but I think he's so stinking good that you put him next to Jordan Brooks at linebacker, and you're going to have a very good linebacker core is Jihad Campbell of Alabama. And the other name, and you might be able to trade down if you can find a partner to trade down, is Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. So pick 13, Shamar Stewart or Jihad Campbell. I would run the card up right there with either one of those two because I think they're going to be awesome NFL players. And if you can't find somebody like, maybe try at least to trade down a little bit, get some other picks, and maybe you take Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. I think because remember, in this world, offensive line's not a pressing need right now. Okay. I've addressed that in free agency. So look at the other side of the ball and let's get some guys who can play defense. So say you draft a front seven player, whether it's an end, a tackle, or even a linebacker at pick 13. You got pick 48 coming up real quick here. What do you do there? Well, safety's a huge need. Now I know Malachi Starks at 13 is going to be he's going to be mocked to Miami a lot. He's going to be in the conversation, and that's fair. I'm not a huge Malachi Starks guy. I'm not saying he's bad. And if Miami took him, I'd be fine with it. I'm not going to be upset. I would look elsewhere at 13. I think you can get better value with one of the three names I just mentioned, honestly. Now, at pick 48, though, we still need help in the secondary. And Xavier Watts from Notre Dame could be there. He's someone I would consider a pick 48. Nick Emanuori out of South Carolina, the safety. Again, his stock skyrocketed this week. He's probably go at the end of round one. If by some miracle he slipped to pick 48, I'm jumping over that. And the other name in round two, pick 48, obviously, if you don't go with someone like Walter Nolan in round one, Alfred Collins out of Texas, a defensive tackle, I'd be very high on for Miami. So if Miami, like I said, in free agency, Marcus Mariota, Brandon Sheriff, Aaron Banks, Trey Sermon, Tyler Boyd, Austin Hooper, and then pick 13, Shamir Stewart, and pick 48, Xavier Watts. I'd be very pleased with that offseason. And again, it's not like you broke the bank on anything, and it's not like in your draft here. I think you're getting solid football players at the end of the day. So those would be three names to pick 13. Although I will say this, Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, that kid's the real deal. That kid's the real deal. And there's a very good chance he's going to be there at 13. He's a guy who can play a little bit of edge, actually, too. But as an off-the-ball linebacker with Jordan Brooks, I just think you fixed your linebacker core right there with one pick. Because most of the time you're in nickel, you're in dime. You only have one or two linebackers on the field at most. You don't need three. And someone like Campbell, I think, especially with what Anthony Weaver does, I think it'd be a perfect fit. So something like that. And yes, as I said, I know they have to spend some money in free agency on the other side of the ball. They're probably going to sign a vet cornerback, set a veteran safety or so. I get that. But if this were me, I would go with this approach. Bulk of money, offense, free agency, draft, bulk of it, defense. We'll see what happens there. But the combine's over. Now we got the pro day starting, I think, this Tuesday. So it'll be a lot of pro day news, obviously. I didn't talk much about quarterbacks here because I don't know. I think Miami is going to draft a quarterback at some point in this draft. I don't think it's going to be early, though. Even round 3 might be a little early. I could see them taking a quarterback around 4 or 5 or later. They don't have a pick in round 6. So I think 4 or 5 or 7 obviously is probably where they'll take a quarterback. 7, you're just taking a flyer on a guy. 4 or 5 would probably be a sweet spot for Miami. But I do think they need position players on defense badly in this draft. So I think even with pick 98 in round 1 or in round 3 at the end of round 3, they probably need a position player. So if there's a quarterback that falls to round 4, whoever it might be, I don't know. Maybe if they see him as a fit, and if not, so be it. As long as they address it in free agency and don't go into the year with Tyler Huntley's your number 2, that is just malpractice. All right, that's all for today's show. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com. We got a bunch of new content up. You're not going to want to miss a bunch of new articles, some new podcasts, all that stuff. Again, like I said, Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com Dolphins Talk. $3 a month. Entered automatically in the contest to win really cool prizes. We gave away a Mercury Morris autographed jersey not too long ago. We got a bobblehead doll we're going to be giving away in the next week or two. We got a March Madness contest with a really cool prize we're going to be giving away. And we have private message board, bonus podcast on the Dolphins, bonus podcast not about the Dolphins, like my wrestling show, like Aaron and myself do a television show where we talk about shows on TV and stuff like that. So Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk, and follow us on social media everywhere on whichever platform at Dolphins Talk. Everyone, have a great start to your week. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, please don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.